Palestine never existed. There's no country ever in the history of the world named
Palestine, a place which very much does exist and has been recorded and documented throughout history from the world's most prominent and prolific historians, scholars, and writers. Let's get into it! I'm Ace, I'm a Palestinian Jew. My family were the Palestinian Jews of the colonized cities of Safad and Tiberias, and I'm an archivist, and I'm going to be going through all the mentions of Palestine in these books right here, from 5th century BCE all the way to the modern day. First up, we have The Histories by Herodotus, written in 5th century BCE. Herodotus was the father of history, and this book is considered the founding work of history in Western literature. The passages in this book are among the earliest non-biblical written references to the region, by specifically the name Palestine used as an exonym. In Book 2, Chapter 104, Herodotus mentions Syrians in Palestine in reference specifically to their cultural practices. In Book 3, Chapter 5, he describes the land between Phoenicia and Egypt specifically as belonging to the Syrians called Palestinians, or, depending on the translation, Syrians of Palestine. Later on in Chapter 91, he notes that Palestine, along with Phoenicia and Cyprus, paid a tribute of 350 talents as a part of the 5th satrapy. Again, in Book 4, Chapter 39, he references the region stretching from Phoenicia along the coast of Palestine to Egypt, specifically referencing the Erythraean Sea. Then, in Book 7, Chapter 89, he mentions that the Phoenicians and the Syrians of Palestine, who furnished ships for Xerxes, originally lived on the Erythraean Sea before settling on the coast of Syria. And this passage is especially important because he uses the exact terminology, and this part of Syria, and all as far as Egypt, is called Palestine. Next up we have Meteorologica by Aristotle, written in 4th century BCE. It's the oldest comprehensive ancient text on the subject of meteorology. And this specific translation was created in 1952, and it includes both the Greek and the English translation, which I think is really cool. As you can see, this is the Greek, and this is the English translation. In Book 2, Chapter 3, around 359a, he refers to a lake in Palestine, widely understood by scholars to be the Dead Sea, using this lake as an example to support his theories on the density of salt water, evaporation, and the formation of the sea, saying, if you bind a man or beast and throw them in, they float and do not sink. He further notes that the water is so bitter and salty that no fish live in it, and that soaking clothes in it cleans them. Next up, I have a special mention, a book called St. Jerome's Letters from Palestine. These letters are specifically from his time in Bethlehem, circa 386 to 420 AD. Now, I've only got a couple of the letters in here. I've applied for the full book, but they are basically a rich, often polemical record of 4th century monastic life, theology, and social observation. I find these letters so fascinating, especially letter 93, which discusses the state of the church in Palestine regarding heresy. Very controversial topic, very interesting, highly recommend. Then we have this little beauty, Othello by Shakespeare, written in 1604, and this is a 1934 edition. It's very small, very cute. In Act 4, Scene 3, Emilia tells Desdemona that she knows a lady in Venice would have walked barefoot to Palestine for a touch of a man's lip. This reference illustrates the historical, cultural, and geographical awareness of the region in 17th century European literature, and is also highly relatable to anyone that's experienced limerence. I have to be very careful with this next book because it's very old and it's falling apart, but this specific copy is from 1852, and it documents the travels, the biblical researches of Palestine. As you can see, this is the Biblical Researches in Palestine, a journal of travels in the year 1852. Now, this map is a little bit ripped. Like I said, it's very, very old. And this, I believe, is the original map. So as you can see, Palestine, Phoenicia, this is from 1856. However, the actual map is from much earlier. As you can see, the notes are from 1839 to 1845, documenting the travels, and has the original red line that they drew out on the map, recording and documenting their travels throughout the region. How cool is that? And last but not least, the Holy Bible. Specifically, this one is the Palestine Pictorial Bible, which was published in 1906. This copy is very special as it was gifted in 1924, still has the inscription right here, to someone called Maud. And it's just so beautifully illustrated. So this is the Palestine Pictorial Bible. It too has a map of Palestine in the back. And like most Bibles, it mentions Palestine and Gaza in the Old Testament, specifically Joel chapter 3:4. Yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? Now, I know some of you will be saying, well, it's the Palestine Pictorial Bible. Of course it says Palestine. I know you evangelical Christians have a copy of the New King James Version, so go check that same passage. Tell me what it says. Also, while I'm here, I just want to dispel a little bit of propaganda that people seem to think that Palestinians didn't refer to themselves as Palestinians before the 1960s. Khalil Beidas, a Palestinian translator, educator, scholar, and novelist, would disagree. In 1898, he used the word Palestinians in the preface to his translation of Akim Olesnetsky's A Description of the Holy Land, specifically to refer to the region and to the people of the land as Palestinians, including himself. Some more reading that I highly recommend you do are the genetic studies specifically on the ancestral relatedness to ancient indigenous Levantine tribes to modern-day Palestinians. Feel free to pause and read, but basically as a sum up, these studies show that modern-day Palestinians are genetically descended from the original tribes who inhabited the land 17,000 years ago prior to the Canaanites, specifically the pre-Natufian Levantines, Natufians, and pre-pottery Neolithic Levantines 17,000 years ago. We exist in a very Orwellian time, when the oppressors are trying to erase and rewrite history. It's very important that we don't let them. We need to preserve it and learn it. Remember, willful ignorance is frankly embarrassing. We are in the age of information, and there is no excuse. So when propagandists try to tell you that Palestine doesn't exist and has never existed, remind them that reading is fundamental. Free Palestine.